Senior Director of Sales Engineering at Parallels, and I'm going to be your host today for this technical webinar. This webinar is part of a larger series of webinars that we have been doing the past few months, and that we plan to do also in the next months. But this webinar is specifically on how to use in Parallels the APIs, not only to do backend automation, but also like how you can automate things on the client side through API. As always, if there are any questions, this is a live webinar. We will address probably some questions at the end of the webinar, but I'm helped today with one of my fantastic colleagues, Paul Fisher. He's manning the chat and the Q&A part of this live webinar. So as always, if you have like any questions or you want to address or help you with something specific during this webinar, we have Paul on the chat, and whenever we still have some little bit of time at the end, I will also try to answer some of the questions live today. With that said, let's jump in. I want to be first of all very thankful for the massive registration for this webinar. I think we hit a new record, I was told by the marketing team, for this type of series. So first of all, thank you all for joining. We have a rather packed agenda for today. Basically, what I would like to cover are, let's say, two big parts. I want to cover on one hand how to automate the Parallels RAS backend side. I will do that mainly through PowerShell and some PowerShell examples. And then I also want to cover how you could do the same thing with the REST API. So if you're not into PowerShell, but you want to use like another scripting language or another tool or another way, you can also do it via our REST API. But that's also something I want to cover in the let's say the first half of the training. And then the second half is more about the client side, so the web client API and some examples. The parallel client URL schemes, and I see I missed an E in my slide. Apologies for that. And then also something I think probably nobody of you have ever heard about, but there is also a Windows client CLI. So that's also something we are going to cover, and then we should have probably enough time for Q&A at the end of this webinar. So let's dive in, and again, like one small reminder: if there are like any questions or feedback, please use the chat or the Q&A part. My colleague Paul is there to help you answering them, and we try to answer them also at the end if time permits. So let me start with a rather bold statement and saying that actually everything you do in the Parallels console can be done through API. Yeah? So where you typically would go into Parallels, start the Parallels console or the web client, the web console, and you would like to make some modifications or change some data or look at some data. All of that, everything that is done in the console can also be done through API. The most easy way for me to do that is by using our PowerShell modules, which are part of the Parallels RAS installation. So before we start, maybe like one disclaimer: I'm not a developer, so let's maybe also be very clear on that. I'm just like let's say a sysadmin with some moderate PowerShell capabilities. So you will see that all the scripts that I'm demoing are things that I've made myself. So these are no like official Parallels PowerShell script, but these are like some things that I've put together mainly as a demo or as an example how the technology can be used. Before we start in going to some samples, first of all, you need to install those PowerShell modules for Parallels. What is important is that the binary version that you're using for the Parallels PowerShell module must be the same as your RAS primary connection broker. So something you need to remember is that, for example, if you do like an upgrade of your Parallels RAS environment from version, I'm saying something like 21 to 21.1, which we're going to release pretty soon, you should also remember to upgrade your PowerShell binaries. By default, if you install like Parallels RAS with a sort of like next, finish install, you will see that the PowerShell modules are also installed on your connection broker. And of course, if you upgrade your connection broker to the latest version, your Parallels PowerShell binaries will also be upgraded automatically on connection broker. But if you want to run the PowerShell on another machine, maybe you want to run it from your own laptop, or you want to run it from a sort of management station, then you need to install it. There are two ways you can install it. One way would be to run the Parallels RAS installer again, and then of course don't go for a next finish install, but go for like a custom install. And then if you just disable all the other components, as you can see on the screenshot, and only leave the Parallels RAS PowerShell part enabled, that will install only the PowerShell modules on your machine. The alternative is actually more or less the same, but then instead of using the installer UI, is to just use the MSIX install method. So I don't know if all of you are aware of that, but you can install Parallels completely also from command line. So if you do like MSIX -I and then your binary, and then you can specify which modules you want to install. So for example, if you want to install only the PowerShell module, then you say like @local = f_PowerShell, and that will just install the PowerShell module. So this is how to actually get PowerShell onto your machine. The module itself is called RASadmin, and the current version is 4.0. So yeah, before you start using it the first time, you should not forget to import it. So if you do like import module RASadmin, then all the RAS comlet, all the Powerlet comlets are loaded. And you will also see that these comlets all have a very standard structure. So it follows, like say, Microsoft best practices. So it's always something like new or get or update, and then RAS, and then what you want to do. So for example, this is like a first example, but if you want to for example, log in and get a list of all the RAS brokers, what you would need to do is first of all create a session. So the command for that is like new RAS session, then -server. If for example you're not connecting local, but you're connecting from a remote machine, then you can specify -server and then the server you want to connect to. If you don't specify anything else, it will just prompt you for your username and your password. Then you can type in your username, password, and the session will be open. Of course, if you want to script this, you want to, for example, have no prompt for usernames, password. So this is like an example code how you could do like a full automated login. So as you can see, I have like username and password for this session. I have my machine, and then the only thing which you need to know is that if you pass the password, it needs to be encrypted. So you have to convert your password into a secure string, and then you can pass it like with new RAS session username, password, encrypted password, and then server, and then it will be open, and then you can put your script. So in this first example, we do like a very simple get RAS broker, and you will get all the results. Important, once you have done your script, you also have to log off. So that can be done with remove RAS session. So that will log you out from the RAS session in general. Let me switch to one of my environments, and let me also show you the documentation in general. So, for example, if you would go to this page, it's part of the standard docs. So if you go to docsparallels.com and then you go to the PowerShell overview, you will get all the comments. So there is a pretty extensive documentation. So you see like all the comments are here. And if I would, for example, look for the get RAS gateway, you see, for example, it's here. If I click on it, you get all the details, the comment, the synopsis, the syntax, and then even if you scroll to the bottom, there are some examples. So, for example, you can have like an example where you get like the details from a specific gateway, or you get a list of all the gateways. So if I run this script, I just tested it out before the session started. But if I run the script, then you will see I log in and I get all the details. So very intuitive, very simple way of using the PowerShell API and getting things done. Let me switch back to my slides because, of course, this is a very simple script. what I have done is I have prepared a few sample scripts just to show you like how powerful it is, and also to give you like an idea how things work in a more like real life scenario. And one thing I forgot to mention, which I didn't need for the get, but typically for those of you who are a little bit familiar with the Parallels RAS console, whenever you make modifications, you always have to click at the end on apply in the console to make them like executing. This is the same thing with the API. So the API works more or less in the same way as the console. Whenever you have made like a few changes, the changes are not applied unless you click on the button. In case of PowerShell, of course, you don't click a button, but you do like an invoke RAS apply to make those changes active. So that's something you should not forget. But that's something we will show you directly into the first example. So the first example that I have prepared is something which is pretty common. You want to, for example, create a bunch of published resources, and that could be like desktops and or applications. Maybe also something worth mentioning is that if you're looking for some sample scripts, and I'm not 100% sure if I've put this link into my slide deck, we can share it afterwards, or if you ask it on the chat, or maybe Paul can even copy it on the chat. But we also have a GitHub repository from Parallels where there are a bunch of scripts available. And for example, one of the scripts we have available over there is we call it our Citrix migration tool. Actually, it's a PowerShell script, and to be very correct, it's two PowerShell scripts. One script is a script that pulls all the input out of for example your Citrix configuration, and then the second script is a little bit linked to what I'm doing here on the screen. It uses that data to populate the RAS site and to create like new desktops and applications from the published apps. It could fetch from Citrix. So if you're looking for something a little bit more complicated than this sample, certainly have a look at our GitHub repository and look for the Citrix migration tool. That's also something that works more or less into the same space as this. But let's have a look at this again. Simple script. So same as before, I log in, so I'm not going to repeat that part. Whenever we publish desktops or applications, we need to know to which system we're going to publish this resource to. And you will see that, for example, if I want to publish a desktop, there is a command called new raspub RDS desktop. And there is also, for application, there is a new raspub RDS app command. So the commandlets are different if you want to publish like a desktop or an application or a local app or some other things. The main reason for that is that, of course, you have like different parameters. In the case of a desktop, for example, we need to know like where to publish it from. So in both examples, we're going to publish it from the default pool. But for example, for a desktop, we want to specify the desktop size, and for example, for an application, we want to specify which executable it needs to run. So you will see that the parameters itself are different based on what you want to publish, but the principle is the same. So for example, in this case, I'm publishing as mentioned before from the default pool, and because I don't know the pool, I have to get it. So this is, for example, like a small command to get like a list of all the host pools on your system. And then if you use the parameter -name default, it will only show you like the default pool. Then we have the pool, and then I can use that as an input parameter for publishing the applications and the desktop. And then, as said before, we should do like an invoke REST apply at the end to apply the changes. Same thing, for example, if you want to know all the parameters for the command for the RAS published desktop, let me click once more on it. But you will see that over here I have all the comments and all the details. So, for example, you will see that publish from, we can publish it from a specific host. We can publish it from a group. We can publish it from a server. So these are all the parameters you can pick. And as before, everything is explained, and then you have at the end like an example. But let's run the script and let's show you that it actually works. So I have over here Parallels RAS deployment. As you can see, I only have like one published application, which is my calculator at this time. If I go back to my other server, I have here my little script. So what I'm going to publish in this case is something called desktop and something called paint. Before I do this, yeah, okay, I'm all good. So if I run the script, I log in, everything has done. There is no output, but just to prove you that it has worked, you see, if I go back to my Parallels environment, I have my desktop and my paint, which is published. So this is very simple, 2-3 lines of PowerShell code, and you can publish desktops and applications. One little enhancement that I have done onto this basic script is something which is used very often in combination with applications and desktops, and that's the filtering. So for example, if you go to my paint application and you take a look, then you will see that there is like no filters except like the default one, and the default one says for the moment that it's allowed if no other rule matches, but there is no other rule. So in this case, the filter is on. What I have done as a second example is I created a small enhancement to the script. So let's go back to my PowerPoint presentation. And what I have done is I've added a filter. So I've created actually a second script because I would like to run them independently. But my second script starts with finding my paint application, as you can see over here. So get RAS published apps minus name paint. So that will look at my paint application. And what I would like to do is I would like to add a rule to that paint application. So this is what I'm doing here. So I would like to add a rule to application ID, the number which is the one from paint. The type that I would like to add is a rule for a published item, and I want to call this rule Steven. So this is the first step I'm doing, just creating like an empty extra rule. And then in that rule, as you know, we can put like multiple criteria. So what I will do is to that rule, I'm going to add a first criteria. And that first criteria will be based on a security principle. So basically what I want to do is like I want to filter based on a specific group. So I'm going to enable that one. And then the second rule that I would like to add is I would like to also add a filter based on IP addresses. And so what this line will basically do is it will, where this one will just create the rule Steven, this one will create a first criteria where I will be able to filter on users or groups, and where I'll be able to filter on IPs. And then the rest of the script will actually fill in the parameters. So what I will do is I'm going to add a security principle criteria. And so on that application, on that published item object, which rule, the first rule. And so this is a little bit like where it's very clear that I'm not a developer. I'm just assuming this is empty, and I'm just taking like the first criteria. So that's what I'm doing here, like criteria null ID, which will give me basically the ID of this rule. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify that the guest's account is allowed. And I'm going to do the same thing for IPs. I'm just going to add a range. So I'm going to say that for this application, you need to be somewhere in the range from 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.12. So these are the parameters that I'm going to set. So these two lines will actually change this to that part. And then there is like one last thing we need to do, and that's change the default rule. So remember that the default rule says like if nothing applies, then it's okay. What we need to do is like change the default behavior from accept to deny. So this is what I'm doing here. So for that same rule that I've added, so the rule that I'm adding here, what I'm doing is I'm changing the default behavior to deny, and then to make everything active, I have to do the RAS apply again, and of course log out. So if I want to show you that in real life, so as you remember before, the filters are empty. Something important to mention is if I would run the script like this, and I can actually, I'm not going to do it right now, but if I would run the script like this, I will get an error because this object is currently logged by the console. So before I run the script, I'm just going to select something else. But if I go back here and I go to the second script, which is exactly what we just discussed, if I run this, it's finished. If I go back and I go to Paint, what you will see is that the staving rule is there, and then you can see there is like a criteria added, which is like it's only allowed for the group guests, as you can see here, guests, and it's only for IPs from 1 to 12. So also this part of the publishing you can fully automate. It's a little bit more a little bit more steps you need to do. Like you need to add first the rule, then you need to add which criteria apply to this rule. Then you have to you should not forget to change the default rule. But basically everything can be configured. So you could, for example, do the same thing for a routing script or a shortcut script. So all these parameters can all be updated automatically from in this. What I just want to show you is like I'm having the object open now. Let's say I would run the script like another time. You see I get like a bunch of errors this time, and you see the main reason is that you see it over here, for example, properties cannot be opened. The published item property are locked by staving from the session. And so just be aware that if you're like developing these scripts and you're writing them, that there's still the same rules apply, that some objects could be locked by the console. So if they are locked by the console, then it's also locked for the API. So you need to remember that you have to move it to not the object to make the script run. But this is like a very simple script to, on one hand, publish applications and desktops, and then second script is to, for example, add the filtering. Let me switch back to my slides. So we've discussed these basic scripts. For those of you who have ever followed like a classroom training with me or with one of my colleagues, you will probably see that we provide to all the participants like an own test machine to play with during the classroom trainings. All these machines are, of course, also not things that we do manually. Also, all of that is automated. So, for example, when we do this classroom trainings and we need like 15 or 20 or 25 lab servers, we use also some PowerShell scripts to automate that. So this is a small extract from one of my scripts that I use to prepare these labs. And this is a completely other topic, but this is, for example, how to generate Let's Encrypt certificates through the API. So even these more complicated things can be automated. This is, for example, some code that I copied out of the script. So once I'm logged into my machine, so this is always the same part. The first time you want to use, for example, Let's Encrypt, and you will notice that if you do that through the console, so the first time you want to use Let's Encrypt, you have to accept with the end user license agreement from Let's Encrypt. So that's like a check mark you have to do. So it's exactly the same story. So let's say you have like a brand new Parallels deployment and you want to activate a script. So the first thing you will actually have to do is also accept the terms. So even for that, there is a PowerShell command. So the PowerShell command is called set RAS Let's Encrypt settings. Site ID, that's the site, because the certificates are per site. So let's assume you have like 2 sites in your environment. Then you have to accept them for the first site. You have to accept them for the second site. So in this case, I'm going for site 1, and I put them to true. So basically, that will just put a check mark. And then the second one is that we can pull a new certificate. So there is a command which is called new RAS certificate, and then there is a parameter which is called minus Let's Encrypt. So that specifies that we want to generate a Let's Encrypt certificate. And then for the rest, it's the same. So we're going to specify what's the name of the certificate, what's the common name. So that will be then, for example, lab.mypublicdomain.com. The email address where the Let's Encrypt renewals needs to be sent to. Enable true, it just make sure it's active. The organization details, the key size, and then this one usage. This is the same as you can see here. So we can specify where this certificate needs to be deployed to. So in this case, I only want to deploy it, for example, on the gateway. Then I keep gateway, and then it will be on the gateway only and not on the hull B. If you want both, you can do like comma hull B, and it will be deployed on the hull B also, and then RAS apply to activate it. So this is a very simple script, again, like two lines of code, how to via the API generate certificates. And a last example, also something that I use in my lab systems is, and that's like going even like one step further. My lab servers that I typically deploy are actually like a multi-tenant environment. So for those of you who are not very familiar with multi-tenant environments, we have done a webinar on advanced architectures. One of the advanced architectures that we discussed was a multi-tenant architecture. Multi-tenant architecture is actually an architecture where you have a connection broker. That's a common layer for the access. Like all your tenants will go through that connection broker, tenant broker environment, and then all your workloads will run into like isolated, let's call them customer tenant environments. We have customers that have a few hundreds, even to more than 1,000 customer environments that they make available in a multi-tenant environment behind the tenant broker, and they want to automate that. Of course, they don't want to. They not only want to deploy that tenant fully automatically and do all the installation, but they also want to join that tenant into the tenant broker. And this is basically like the code that you're seeing here. And it's a two-step process. So one part is the thing that needs to happen on the tenant broker itself. So what we need to do on the tenant broker is we need to prepare the tenant broker for accepting this customer tenant. And again, for those of you who have followed the other webinar or who are familiar with that, there are two ways you could do that. You could do that with an invitation hash, and an invitation hash is basically that you create upfront like a sort of like template and a unique key that can be used to onboard like one customer tenant into the environment, and then you can, for example, email that to the administrator of that tenant, and he can use that to register his tenant into your tenant broker. The other way you could do that is with a secret key, and that's something I also explained during that session. This is the way or the method that I'm using in this PowerShell script. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to specify that secret key is allowed, because that secret key is very powerful. That secret key will just register any tenant that wants to join your connection broker and that has that secret key. So there is like no check or no template that needs to be created. Like anyone with that key can register his tenant in your tenant broker. So that's a security thing that needs to be enabled first. So by default, it's off. So this is what we're doing here. It's set RAS tenant broker settings. So that's the command, and then the setting what we want to change is the allow registration with secret key to true. So that's the first step. So we have to allow that secret key can be used. Of course, then we don't have the secret key yet. So this is something that you also need to know. How can you create such a secret key? That's via the invoke RAS tenant broker settings, and then there's something where you can do like command generate hash. And that will generate that secret key. So the secret key will be stored in this variable, and of course we have to apply again on RAS apply to make it active. And then the second part of my code will log into every of these lab servers. So for example, if I want to have like 25 lab servers, I will make a loop saying like log into lab server 1, log into lab server 2, log into lab server 25. And once that is done, so this is what you see over here. So I'm making a new connection with that specific machine that I want to join. There is again a command which is called invoke RAS tenant broker minus join. So to join a tenant broker via a hash key, which is the secret key that we have generated here, we need to specify the tenant broker details. So we want to join that machine. So the machine is called TBVM. So that's my tenant broker. I need to specify the public domain address. This has to do with how the multi-tenant environment works. For every multi-tenant for every tenant that you want to join in a multi-tenant environment, you have to specify a public DNS name. So this is basically what we pass here, and then we just have to give it a name. So the tenant name is what we specify here, and then invoke RAS apply. So again, with like 2 or 3 lines of PowerShell commands, we can activate the multi-tenant side, the tenant broker side, and we can join a tenant broker. We can join a customer tenant into a tenant broker. So as you can see, it goes pretty far, and it's pretty advanced what you can do with the PowerShell API. As said before, let's park the PowerShell API for now. Everything we do on the backend side with the Parallels console can be automated through API. PowerShell is one way. The other way is via the REST API. To use the REST API, you need to have the Parallels RAS web console running. So this is something that needs to be set up. Again, by default, if you do like a next finish install, it will be there. But it's important that the REST API run on top of the web console. So if you want to, let's say, access this REST API from outside, you will have to make, for example, your RAS web console also available from outside. So this is something you have to take into account. The web console runs on port 2443, so that's the default web console port, and everything works based on JSON and it's just a standard RESTful API. So the way it works is first of all you have to log in. So there is an API call that you have to call, which is the logon API call. So you have to go to API sessions logon. What do you need to pass? You need to pass two things. First of all, you need to specify that the content which you're going to send via a post call is JSON format, and the content itself, the body, needs to look like this, like username, double point, and then your username, comma, password, double point, your password. And if that is successful, what you will get back is an auth token. So you will get after a successful login, you will get back this auth token. And then for all your next queries through the REST API, you have to add that auth token into the header. So you have to extend your header, put that auth token into your header, and then from once that is done, you can, for example, call the API sites or the API gateway or whatever to start interacting with the REST API. It's very standard. It's get, post, put, delete. So it's a pretty standard way of working. Everything is JSON formatted. So it's rather straightforward. There is also for the PowerShell API, there is also like a separate manual with all the details. So if you want to go through it, for example, if you want to get like the list of all the gateways, you can just go into here and then click on gateways, and you get all the details. So this is also pretty well documented in here. So it's there. So you see, it has some samples. Like if you do a get, this is the response that you get. If you do a put, if you do a post, like all the details are in here based on the different commands. For example, if you do like API gateway, it will give you the list of the gateways. If you want to see like a specific gateway detail, you have to do like API gateway and then the number to scroll through it. So everything is pretty well documented. If you want to do like an update, you do a put. If you want to delete one, so all the details are in here. Just to show you how it works, and again, I'm not a developer, so I used PowerShell to mimic the REST API in this example. So apologies to all developers who are online, but this was for me the most easy way to explain you how the REST API works. So this is not a PowerShell API that I'm using, but the REST API. So what I have done in this simple script is I created a header. So I created a new one. I added the application JSON as the type. I created a JSON object, username, password. I've converted it to JSON. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to log into that machine on the API sessions logon. And what I'm doing is invoke REST method post which URI, this one, and the logon API, which what I'm going to pass as a body is the username, and then I'm using the headers that I have created. I'm using over here, as you can see, the skip certificate check. That is because my certificate is not trusted on this one. So this was also like a little bit being lazy, but that's how it works. And then once it's done, you get the result. So the result is there, and then if you look in the result, there will be an auth token, which is that unique token for this session. I'm just adding it to the header, so auth token added to the header, and then I can do like all the commands like API gateways and so on and so on. So this is for example like an example how you can use also the REST API to connect to Parallels. So if you're more into things like Python or any other programming or scripting language, then you could use this method of interacting with the API with the backend APIs. Good. Let's go to the second part of the training, which is the client side. So far we have been automating and doing all kinds of magic on the backend, but also on the client side there's a lot of automation possible. One of the first things we could, for example, do is we could craft a URL, and that's the web client API. We could craft a URL that, for example, starts directly a specific application. So maybe you want to integrate Parallels into like another website or into another system. Then you can craft a web client URL. And the most important part is that app ID. So if you know the app ID of the application, you can, for example, say like HTTPS, your gateway > app ID equals, and then the number. You could also do like override parameter and some extra parameters that need to be passed on. But basically, if you know the app ID, you can very easily start it. You can specify the theme if needed. You can combine everything, and so you can also say like user portal equals theme. So it's pretty powerful. If you want to know all the details, again, if you go to docsparallels.com, there is also for this is not a separate manual, but this is part of the administrator's guide. But if you go into the administrator's guide, you will see that there is like also like a full chapter explaining you all the parameters and all the IDs. So how does it work in reality? So I have over here my calculator, and as you can see, my calculator has a number 26. So this is something you can see here, information application. So in my case, my calculator is number 26. So what I have done here is let me just show it. I've just crafted an URL, which is like my gateway, and then app ID equals 26. So if I do this, what will happen is I will start RAS. It will prompt me for my username and my password. So this should be my password, hopefully. Yeah. And then, as you can see, it automatically starts the application, and it's there. My calculator is published. This is the most simple case. Yeah, let's quickly go back to the slides before I show you the second example. So in this case, I still have to provide like my username and password. For some users, this will be fine, but if you want to do, like, for example, a deeper integration, or maybe you're an ISV and you want to combine some of the stuff you have on your web portal with some of the stuff which we publish through Parallels, this web client API becomes much more powerful, because what you can also do is you can also pass a JSON file to it, and that JSON file can, for example, contain things like certain client settings. So you could, for example, specify a username. You could specify even a password. You could specify if audio needs to be redirected, which client settings need to be done. So it is possible, for example, to do like a full single sign-on from a published web link all the way into an application that actually runs. So the typical use case would be like, for example, you want to integrate this resource in a completely different user portal. The way it works is like this. So you craft an URL, and then what you need to do is you need to specify a JSON file containing a specific structure. So again, if you want to know more, there is a document that describes it. So let me open it for you and show it. But if you craft an JSON file that looks like this, where you say like username, password, and then the A stands for which application that you want to run, so the number, and then you can specify like a bunch of other parameters. The other parameters are optional, but you could specify like override parameters, logon URL, logoff URL, so all these details. Everything is described in this setting. You could do a full single sign-on. So this is actually what I have done. So I have here crafted a JSON file. I've just put it on a dummy web server. This is also something that I discovered the hard way while preparing for this webinar. If you craft these files, they need to run on HTTPS with a trusted certificate. So if you run it on an HTTP website, it will not work from a security point of view. But what you can do then is, like, if you take a look here at this URL, so let me show you. So it's the same as before. So it's my internal machine user portal ? And then I'm just specifying that JSON file that I have crafted. And then this is just something you see at end. It's hash / launch, and that will actually launch the app directly. So where if I started this one calculator, I had to type it in. If I launch this one, it will fetch the settings from that from that website, and then you will see it will not prompt me for username and password. It will just log me in and give you my favorite calculator app started. So you see that that web API is pretty powerful and can be integrated. Of course, you would not do it this way. You would create it, for example, with a unique identifier, and you would delete it afterwards. But there are ways, if you're like an ISV, that you could, for example, integrate your own application with some published applications from via RAS. So that's the main lesson I want to give you with this, is that there are ways to pass data from one system to another if that would be needed. So this is all for the web client. We can do the same with the native client. So if you would use not the web client but the native clients, you will see that there is a specific URL handle per native client. It's either PLS client or Tux client, but there is a URL handler, and via that URL handler you can also pass or query certain information. So, for example, you can for example use it to change settings on the client, or you can use it to open a session, or you can use it to log off a session. So you can do the same things with the native clients also via the like demonstrated with the web client, also via the native clients. The URL scheme looks a little bit different. So there is also a way that you could, there are things like get version and launch up and get to XA. So there is a bunch of things that could work. That get to XA setting is more or less the same as that JSON from before. The only thing you will notice is that the file that you need to craft is a bit different. So if you go to the documentation, you will see that it's a little bit different. And then this is some options. Let me go through it. But this is the get version. This is the one I was looking for. So you can specify like also a file, and then either via a comment line. So this is the comment line, and then you can also do it via an XML file. You can craft it, and then you see it looks a little bit different. It has a little bit different. It's not really JSON. It's more like a sort of structured file. But if you create these kinds of files, you can do the same thing with the native client, and use the native clients also automatically through through RAS. The last thing before I jump into the questions is something that probably none of you will have ever heard, because it's in the product, but I don't think we have ever did any communication on it. So since we have modernized our Windows client, the Windows client can also work in CLI mode, so in interactive mode. And actually, it's on your system. So if you're running like one of the more recent versions of Parallels, you will see that you can also automate and script things through the Windows client CLI. And let me just give you a quick example. So I'm here on my own machine right now. So I'm into my installed Parallels client directly. So you see I'm in Program Files, Parallels Client, Modern UI. And then in here, there is the app server client CLI that I can start. So it's just an executable. If I start it, it's there. It has a lot of documentation. So if you click Help, it will show you everything which is possible. So there's a bunch of things we can do. Like I'm saying something like add connection, list connections, like all this stuff you can do. Like for example, if I would do list connections, it will show you my connections that I have in my system. So you see it will show you my connections. I actually no, I don't want to update right now. But you will see it will show you my connections. It will show you how to connect and all and so on and so on. What I could do, for example, like now, I could say like log on RAS. So that will just take my default one, which is in my case the first one. Otherwise, I can also do like things like -ID and specify the one that I would like to. But I'm just going to do like log on RAS. So you see, it will automatically now start my client. I'm connected. It will show me all the applications which are available to me. So for example, you see I have Word Publisher, so I have like a bunch of applications. And let me start my favorite one. So if I do like start RAS objects -ID and RAS 161171, which is my calculator app, you will see I got the result. Okay, so it means that it's working, and my client is now connecting, and it should present like in a few seconds. Normally calculator, there it is. So I have my published calculator running. So this is also like another way that we can interact or automate stuff through Parallels. So this could be, for example, like a very nice way if you want to do like some end-to-end monitoring. Let's say you want to do like some performance monitoring or client monitoring. This is like a very nice way. You could all the way automate the client monitoring through a remote client. So it's not this one. So I was at this last slide. Maybe also like a last remark on that CLI. Everything is again JSON, so you could even use that into PowerShell, for example, to automate things on the client side if needed. So you can just also pass all the commands and all the parameters in as an argument through the executable, and then it returns always JSON. So you can also very easily automate that to PowerShell. So the client side can also be automated through PowerShell via the Windows client CLI. So this brings me to the, so this is the example that I've given you. Of course, if you want to log off, there is a command called log off RAS. That's something I didn't do, but you can of course also log off. But that's the last thing I wanted to show you today. So let me first of all check if there are like any questions. If there would be any questions, more than happy to answer them. I'm checking with Paul. Okay, Paul has already published the GitHub link, I see, so that's nice. And then there are some questions on can we have access to the old webinars? Yes, so the old webinars are all on YouTube. If you go to the Parallels YouTube channel, you can find them back. If you would not find them, I've shared you my contact details. Just drop me an email. I'm more than happy to send them also over the links if you would not find them.
Want me to summarize
yeah, I'm
few questions?
At the questions. So there are some questions like the scheduled script runs multiple times within a minute and causes a lot of sessions in the RAS admin. Yeah, so I think this is also something important. If you make a script, yeah, you have to think a little bit about it. Like if you make a script that says like open session, do this, open session, do this, open session, do that, then of course you will have like a lot of sessions open. So it's probably like sometimes better to make a script like open session, do all the actions, and then close the session. That will avoid that you have like too many open sessions. But that's probably like a little bit of like help that needs to be done on the PowerShell side. Yeah, there's a question on can we reuse sessions? I think, but I'm not sure. But there is like a sort of like expiration, so you can keep a session open for a certain amount of time, but after a certain time the session will be closed anyway. So it's not something that you can keep open for days. So there is I'm trying to go through all the questions.
There's a few at the start around kind of encrypting the password rather than having it in plain text within the script. I posted a couple of options around there. Generally, that's kind of how PowerShell tends to work, but you can use the DP API, like a encrypted file, using that method.
Correct.
Pull those passwords out of there. So there are options around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first thing I'm going to do after the webinar is change the password on that on that user. But yes, I said again in the beginning, I'm not a developer. I also try to keep it pretty simple and straightforward. But there are indeed some best practices you can do to not store passwords in scripts. And I agree in general that's certainly a good best practice to do it that way. Yeah, I'm looking. Anything else, Paul? We need to pick up because I see there are more coming in as we speak.
No, there was just a few around the same kind of topic around can we single sign on, or so I don't want to save the password in clear text type of thing.
Yeah. All good. With that said, let's call it a day. I'm going through after the webinar through the questions. If I might have forgotten something, I will contact you individually. But with that said, thank you for being present with so many. Look forward for new sessions we're going to announce them pretty soon, and also look forward. There will also be some announcement pretty soon on an updated RAS version coming also in the next weeks your direction. For those of you who it's your end of day, enjoy your evening. For people joining on the east side of me from US typically or LATAM, have a nice day. For people out of APAC, I've seen also some people joining from very far away. Enjoy your night even. So thank you, and speak to you pretty soon, hopefully. Bye-bye.